Good afternoon. I'm Joseph D'Amico, Superintendent of the New York State Police. And I'm standing up here with Will Plummer, who's the Special Agent in charge of DEA for New York, with Commissioner Dan Durenda from Buffalo PD, and of course, Mayor Byron Brown. I also want to acknowledge just the presence in the room of some of our partners, David Zahn, who's the Assistant Special Agent in charge for DEA, Niagara County Sheriff Jim Votour, Erie County Sheriff Tim Howard, and from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the Director of Marine Ops, Brian Manaher, all great partners in what we do here in law enforcement. It's an honor to stand here with our federal and local law enforcement partners to announce that we've dismantled the drug trafficking organization and are taking 25 individuals off the streets. Individuals who are responsible for trafficking heroin and cocaine throughout the city of Buffalo and our surrounding communities. The investigation, which was dubbed Operation Rolling Thunder, began back in October 2015. And since that time, investigators from the DEA, the Buffalo Police Department, the New York State Police, the Attorney General's Organized Crime Task Force, and many other law enforcement partners conducted numerous hours of surveillance, phone intercepts, undercover buys, and they utilized other investigative techniques to develop a solid case on this group. Investigators soon learned that heroin was being transported from New York City and the Philadelphia area by car, and cocaine was being sent through the mail, through the U.S. mail from Puerto Rico. The drugs were secreted in phony bean cans, birthday presents, and other wrappings. Once the drugs got to Western New York, the drugs were packaged and distributed from hub locations in the city of Buffalo and in Lockport in Niagara County, and then sold on our streets. Search warrants were executed today at 3 locations here in the city, and as you can see in front of you, over the course of this investigation, here is some of the evidence that was recovered. There's 1.5 kilos of heroin there, something important to note, fentanyl-laced heroin, worth about $600,000 on the street. 6 kilos of cocaine, also worth about $600,000, and about 60 grand in cash was taken. The case was presented to an Erie County grand jury by prosecutors from the New York State Organized Crime Task Force, and felony indictments were returned on all of the subjects. This morning, teams of investigators from all of these agencies fanned out and successfully arrested 20 of the 25 subjects, and we're currently out there hunting for the remaining 5, and I'm confident we're going to get them. They're being charged with various crimes, including criminal sale of controlled substance, criminal possession of controlled substance, and conspiracy to distribute narcotics, A1 and B felonies, which carry maximum sentences of 25 years in prison. As I said, particularly disturbing to us, out of the evidence that was recovered, we found heroin that was seized. We found heroin that was laced with the deadly mix of fentanyl. Fentanyl, which is much stronger than heroin, it's cheaper than heroin, and often it's used as a cut product so that the dealers can bring up the profit value in the drugs that they sell. And though we're not connecting any overdose deaths to these drugs or this crew at this time, imagine if these drugs had made it out to our streets and what the potential deadly impact could have been on our community. The key to success in so much of what we do in law enforcement is truly partnership. It's a theme you'll probably hear from all of us standing up here, and this collaboration is really critical. We tap into our agency's skills and our strengths to identify and take down these groups and to remove their drugs from the streets. The individuals that you see charged today had absolutely no regard for the damage that these drugs were going to do to our communities and our neighbors. Heroin continues to be a major concern for all of us in law enforcement. It's highly addictive, it's cheap, and it's available in every community in our state. And it's important to note, heroin and opiate abuse is not just a city problem. We find it rampant in suburbs, but also in rural communities. Opioid abuse and addiction knows no boundaries. These drugs don't discriminate. We get teens, grandparents, blue collar, white collar, single, married people with children. Our members, our officers have encountered people from all groups. I just want to recognize the dedication and work of the men and women of the New York State Police, our uniformed troopers who do so much of the roadside interdiction, the investigators of the Community Narcotics Enforcement Team under the leadership of Major Dave Krause, and in the Buffalo area here, Lieutenant Kevin Reyes. Our senior teams worked with local law enforcement, and they were able to bring so many of these good cases. I want to thank the Attorney General's Organized Crime Task Force under the leadership of Deputy Attorney General Harry Kadnoff, Deputy Chief Investigator Gene Black, Assistant Attorney General Pat Carrington, who's prosecuting this case, the investigator, case investigator Pedro Pavone, and his supervisor Pete Talty, and their team here in Buffalo. Always tremendous partners to the New York State Police and so many other law enforcement agencies. And of course, a particular thanks to Commissioner Dan Durenda, the Buffalo PD, Special Agent in Charge Will Plummer and his DEA agents, the Niagara County Drug Task Force, U.S. Postal Inspection Service, and members of CBP and Homeland Security and ATF, all great partners. I think this case speaks to the professionalism of all of the partners involved and what all of our folks do each and every day. And I want to thank all of you for your support, your partnership, and for the great work. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Special Agent in Charge of the DEA for New York, Will Plummer.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. As the superintendent just stated, I would like to thank all of the partnerships that have played a crucial role in this, especially the detectives, the agents, the sheriff deputies, because one of the things that you'll find out as this case goes into more and more details is that a lot of these drugs are coming from either out of the city of New York, downtown Manhattan, out of Philadelphia, and out of Puerto Rico. But along the way, there was somebody that interdicted that. As the superintendent just mentioned, a lot of the state troopers along the road coordinated intelligence that was given from everyone that was working to take off half a kilogram or more of heroin on its destination for here in Western New York. And that is important because as all of us are aware of the heroin and opioid epidemic that's going on now, and not only here in Western New York, but other areas of the country, it is important that we try to interdict this before it gets here. I would like to thank the Buffalo Police Department in particular, because as we work in partnership with them, you can see that as some of these investigations have not only this one but others, has led to a reduction in crime here in Buffalo City. And I would like to thank the mayor and the commissioner here, as well as the Erie County Sheriff Department and Niagara County Sheriff Department, as well as the New York State Police and our partnerships for the job that they've done in taking down this mountain, this organization, and other ones that we work on. And it gives me a pleasure to introduce the Commissioner of the Buffalo Police Department, Commissioner Durand.
Good afternoon. I too want to thank our partners, our state, local, federal partners, State Attorney General's Office, the DEA, State Police, and all the partners you see here today that put together this operation that resulted in having 25 top drug dealers removed from the street. At a time when we have at least 10 people a week dying from overdoses, we believe this will have an impact on cutting down the amount of drugs being sold in this area. And we hope to see that these 25 people are remanded to custody and are off our streets and no longer can deal in their drugs that are killing people every day. Again, I want to thank everybody involved with this operation, and now I want to introduce the City of Buffalo Mayor, Byron Brown.
The arrests being announced today represent excellent and collaborative police work on the part of state, local, and federal law enforcement agencies. I too, as mayor of the City of Buffalo, on behalf of the people of this community, want to thank the New York State Police and Superintendent D'Amico. Want to thank the DEA and Special Agent in Charge Plummer. Certainly want to recognize the efforts of our police department and Commissioner Durenda and Attorney General Eric Schneiderman and the attorneys that work for him and all of the other law enforcement agencies. Also want to recognize our colleague, Sheriff Tim Howard, who is with us, and the Sheriff of Niagara County, who is with us, and thank all of the law enforcement agencies that participated in making the streets of the City of Buffalo, Western New York, and New York State safer by this excellent law enforcement effort that has been done in such a collaborative way. Tremendous law enforcement partnership at the local, state, and federal level. And again, on behalf of the people of this community, we're very grateful. Thank you all very much. I will now open it up to questions that you might have.
Could you guys talk a little bit about, it doesn't matter who it is, but perhaps just from law enforcement, the size and a little bit of the collaboration that was involved in the timeliness of all of this? As Mayor Brown just mentioned, you have 10, 11 people dying per week, a lot from this fentanyl-laced heroin. there was a great effort among law enforcement from several different agencies that made this happen, that were able to get these drugs here. Could you talk about maybe the rarity of that and the size of this investigation to get this kind of drugs on the street?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a rarity that we work together to get these cases done. You know, they cross over many boundaries. A case like this, it comes up through Philadelphia, it comes up through New York City, it finds its way into upstate New York, whether it's Erie County and Niagara County, and you know, no one agency can really combat this effectively. So it's a priority for us. You know, we try to deal with heroin on many levels, from you know, first responders using naloxone to save on overdoses, to street level sales, up to major traffickers, which we would consider this group, you know, certainly on the high level of trafficking. And so this is just a good example of how we tap into other agencies. There's no boundaries or restrictions or egos involved here. We all just want to accomplish the same thing: to arrest these people, get rid of them, get this stuff off the street. You think about this, all the drugs you see before you, and if they were cut up and distributed, and how many hits this means on the street. The fentanyl stuff, very potent, very deadly. People don't know they have it in the heroin they're using, and responsible for overdoses all across the country. So who knows how many lives were saved just out of the fentanyl-laced heroin.
The length of this investigation, in terms of months?
9 months. It started around October 2015. And we've been working it as aggressively as we can, because we do recognize the longer the people are out there, the higher the risk. But it's important that you don't take it down prematurely, that you're able to make good, solid cases. One of the individuals who was arraigned this morning was held with no bail. So I mean, that's the kind of things we're looking for. 25-year sentences. That's what makes an impact, as opposed to just you know, taking it prematurely.
And so are all of the suspects local, or where is their?
Well, most of them are Buffalo area. There's some from Niagara County, and this subject here is from Manhattan, New York City area, but most of them are upstate and local.
And how are they all connected? Is everyone with the heroin and cocaine, or some of them appear to be just one avenue?
So I'll just explain the chart to you, and you know, I can answer further if you want. So this side of the chart over here is the heroin side. Okay, there's basically two sources that we've identified. There's this Estevez Rodriguez, who's Manhattan-based. He's a supplier of heroin, including the fentanyl lace. We have Santiago, who is getting stuff from a supplier down in Philadelphia, who we're not naming and we'll continue to work on. It worked its way up through New York. The three individuals in the middle that you see here are really the major distributors. So the heroin would make it down to them. These two individuals would distribute down through the Buffalo streets. This individual on the right side, Santiago, was responsible mostly for the Lockport and Niagara distribution down through this crew. Up on the left side of the chart, you see these four individuals, mostly responsible for the cocaine. Coming from Puerto Rico, U.S. mail is what we identified, and as you can see, packaged in resealed bean cans, birthday presents, and stuff like that. The four of these would get the drugs here from Puerto Rico, and again, make it up to these three individuals, who would then sell it on the Buffalo streets and on the Lockport street. So they're all affiliated with each other. There's no hierarchy of a gang. There's no gang affiliations, but the people on the top supplied these three individuals, who are the major distributors, and these are more locally their sellers.
So this beam decoy, is that something new, or have you seen that in the past?
Could you ask the question? I didn't hear the beginning.
The beam decoy, you know, putting the drugs in these beam cans, is that new?
It's, you know what, drug dealers will think of any way they can to move their product, whether it's stashing it in auto parts. Early this year we had it in axles of trucks in a different part of the state. But using decoy material like that for shipping or for sending through the mail is really common practice. Whether it's a bean can or it's something else, it's just a variety that someone's thought of.
How significant is it that you got not just people who were operating here in Western New York, but the people who were in New York, Philadelphia, Puerto Rico? Is this going to essentially cripple some of what was going on here, or are there other people who would step in to take over that business?
I mean, that's what we always worry about, and you know, I'll let Commissioner Durando maybe talk about the impact here in Buffalo. But you know, obviously there's people higher in the chain than that, and we continue to work that. You know, our case never ends. I mean, we try to take down this piece instead of leaving it out there while we continue to work up the Philadelphia piece, the Puerto Rico pieces. But I think that all of these people at the bottom will be removed. There'll be, you know, some sort of effort to replace them, and law enforcement, you know, is usually prepared for that. You want to speak on that?
I believe this was a major roundup today. You're gonna see a lot less drugs in the city for a short time until they do find alternative sources, but right now I believe we'll have an immediate impact on reducing, as I said, 10 deaths a week happened in Erie County. We hope that'll have some impact on reducing the number of deaths. We've recently gotten suicides related to opiates, so there's a whole bunch of things going on, but I believe this is a major, major impact. This investigation was a joint effort led by the state police and the Attorney General's office, and I can't thank them enough for all their efforts.
If this is a sudden level, a sudden change in the amount of drugs on the streets, do we have to worry about people taking desperate measures like we saw in Lockport over the weekend?
I believe that will occur in some cases. When we had 12,000 patients to a doctor who is no longer allowed to prescribe pills, I think we're going to see an impact from that in the coming days, weeks ahead, and that was the case in the Lockport robbery of the hospital. But again, we're out here, we're working hard, we're making arrests every day, but this was a huge, huge effort.
So what about then safety of medical facilities where people can just walk in the doors?
Again, I believe that's being addressed by the facilities.
What was the initial tip-off, perhaps? I mean, I know yesterday, I think we saw in Hamburg, it was just people in the community kind of concerned. I mean, I know without getting too specific.
Yeah, I really don't want to discuss how the case was generated, but it was in coordination with our partners in DEA. We developed information, and we were able to take that and start to work up the chain and to do phone intercepts and surveillance. And as you can see, it was successful. Good. Thank you very much.